Here.
Commissioner Robbins.
Here.
Commissioner Moline.
Here.
Commissioner Baloo.
Present.
President Dorhoeffer.
Here. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the agenda this evening is the omnibus vote agenda. Items under the omnibus vote agenda are considered routine and/or non-controversial and would be approved by one motion. If a separate vote on any one item is desired, it will be pulled from the omnibus vote agenda and voted on separately. Items in the omnibus for this evening are the minutes of the regular board meeting dated July 25th, 2019, and the payables less Granger and payroll through August 22nd, 2019, in the amount of $867,992.77. Could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Robbins.
Yes.
Commissioner Moline.
Yes.
Commissioner Baloo.
Yes.
Commissioner Kessler.
Yes.
President Dorhoeffer.
Yes. Next is the financial reports for the period ending July 31st. Marla, are the financial reports on the file?
Yes, they are. No
Perfect.
changes.
No changes. Perfect. Could I have a motion to approve the financial reports for the period ending July 31st, 2014, pending 2019, time warp, pending audit adoption? Second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Kessler.
Yes.
Commissioner Baloo.
Yes.
Commissioner Moline.
Yes.
Commissioner Robbins.
Yes.
President Dorhoeffer.
Yes, next item on the agenda is the welcome to visitors and guests, public comment period. As we have no visitor, or no guests coming, or visitors coming up, we would like to invite State Representative Daniel Didich. If you could please come to the podium. And before you start, on behalf of the Park Board, on behalf of the residents of Vernon Hills, we'd like to thank you for the funding of the tennis courts, both at Grosse Pointe as well as Lashen.
Absolutely, you're welcome. Yes, no, thank you for having me. I'm the state representative of the 59th district, which includes about 75% of Vernon Hills. The rest of Vernon Hills is up in the 51st district with under the purview of Mary Edley Allen. Thank you for having me. I've been trying to make the rounds throughout the district to come as many board meetings as I can and to see what you guys are doing and introduce myself. I know most of us have met already, but very grateful for the opportunity to formally introduce myself to the Vernon Hills Park Board. Very, very busy year in Springfield. I'll give you a brief update with what we did, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Like you said, kind of the highlight was the infrastructure bill. Very, very exciting that we got funding for the Vernon Hills Park District for the Lashen Park, the Grosse Pointe tennis courts, and the locker room renovation. Very, very exciting for another reason too, just so everybody can see that, when we do some of the unpopular things that we do, that money, it actually does go towards things in our community that our neighbors are going to benefit a lot from. We're not just raising the gas tax and raising the vehicle registration fees and putting casinos everywhere just because we like taking people's money. We're using that money to reinvest it in our communities, rebuild roads and bridges and parks and buildings and things that I think everybody's going to really benefit from. It was a very, I'd call it a historic session down in Springfield with the new governor coming in supermajorities in the legislature. We accomplished a lot of things that I think are going to help a lot of people in our states. We raised the minimum wage, passed the capital bill, passed a balanced budget for the first time in a long time, which was very exciting for everybody. We're putting the fair tax amendment on the ballot so voters will get to decide if they want to switch from flat tax to a graduated income tax system. And some more controversial things too. The gambling expansion, some gun safety legislation, the legalization of cannabis, that I know people have disagreements on a lot of those things, but we handled them in as thoughtful and responsible a way as I think we could, and I think it produced a result that, all things considered, is going to be good for everybody. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them or talk about any issues you guys are concerned about. If not, I'll let you get on with your meeting.
Any questions? Just thank you again. You've been great. We appreciate it very much. If there's anything we can do to help you, let us know, and
Thank
we'll
you.
be happy to do whatever we can.
Yeah, and I know my predecessor, Representative Sensi, was a fabulous supporter of the Park District, and I'm doing the best I can to try to follow in her footsteps. And Jeff is a phenomenal resource. I stay in close contact with Jeff on a number of different issues that affect the Park District, and I'm very grateful to have people in the district who are a good resource. I know not every representative is that lucky, so we're very grateful to have you guys doing a good job. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the unfinished business. As seen as we have none, we go to new business. If Tom Ritter would please step to the podium.
I'm not usually over here. I kind of like it. You want to come up and join me, Gail? Don't worry, I
Wasn't
won't.
sure whether you wanted her with you or not, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So
won't roast her.
this item is actually Gail Herman recognition, and Tom will explain to you why we can't recognize Gail enough, and we can't thank her enough, but Tom, you'll start us off.
I wrote a little something for you. Gail Herman has worked for the Vernon Hills Park District for 29 years, of which 20 have been in a full-time capacity. She started doing part-time jobs, including being a preschool teacher's aide, a preschool teacher, a front desk customer service rep, and she's been a camp director, amongst other things she's done. All of these experiences helped her build her credentials to become the great early childhood supervisor that she has become. From a programming perspective, Gail has been responsible for many areas, and it has grown with time. She's responsible for our preschool, tot programming, several day camps, the youth dance program, and she previously had organized several special events. She always gave it her best, and it showed in the results of her work. Gail has also been an integral part of the Park District, and more specifically, a huge part of the recreation team. She's extremely well respected by her peers, and she's a key source of information for people seeking advice about programming, customer service, and more often than not, personal advice. She's a great leader. She leads by example. She's been someone who provides what I consider a good maternal role to many of her peers. She uses sound judgment, she does what's right, and she makes everybody feel comfortable. Those characteristics go a long way in creating a stable, happy work environment. Now it's time to move on to the next chapter of her life and let others do the programming for her. We wish her the best in her retirement and thank her for all she has done for the Vernon Hills Park District and the community. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And I brought you flowers. No, I didn't.
Stay here with me. I hold in my hand the recognition of distinguished service awarded to Gail Herman in grateful appreciation for dedicated service during an honorable career of 29 years with the Vernon Hills Park District. Given on the occasion of your retirement, August 22nd, 2019, signed by myself and Tom Ritter. On behalf of the board, and they're going to have their moment in a second, but we can't thank you enough for everything you've done. Many people in this community identify the Parks District, the schools with you. So thank you for everything.
Thank you.
So let me just do this real quick. And the podium is all yours.
So, I'm gonna try not to be too emotional here. It surprises me sometimes when I am.
You're not
I'm
leaving
just,
for another week. So.
that's right, that's right. I cried ugly the other day at a staff meeting, so I don't intend to do it tonight. But part of the humor in this is that my husband's probably sitting there listening to Tom talk, and he's probably laughing to himself. Because you know what? Everybody is different in their employment than they are at home, because you kind of let it all hang out with your spouse or your family. And he was kind of trying to remind me before of when I was a camp director. I brought a lot of stuff home, and I put my family through a lot of things. But without their support, I wouldn't have been able to do this. I have loved every single moment. Well, 95% of it.
Loved
There-
busing?
No, no. I told Tom that the last 2 years of summer camp has been wonderful. There was never really a Monday that I didn't want to come to work. And that says a lot, and I hope I have taught my children that when you do what you love, it's not a job, it's a pleasure. I thank all of you for all the respect and the opportunity that you have given me. Jim, even back hiring me to work at the front desk. Jeff, for putting up with me all these years. I really appreciate it. I couldn't ask for anybody better. And to all of you full-time staff who I've worked among, I really appreciate everything. So thank you so much, and you will be seeing me because I'm not leaving the community quite yet. So thank you so much.
Commissioner Kessler.
Gail, I too want to thank you for all the effort and energy you put into your career. My children went to the preschool, and I admire all the teachers for having such energy that they have to give day in and day out to the children. And people who love their job, you can tell. And so I appreciate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Commissioner Blue.
Just a quick little history lesson here. No, you can sit down. That's what I tell you about. So
You know the history.
So Gail and I have known each other since 1992, I believe. We met, and from when we had a little shack that used to be over on Cherry Valley. That was our offices, believe it or not. And we built this facility, and I remember Gail working with the camps, and then she came in one day and she says, I need a little more money if I can have a job. And I'm like, absolutely. Because we were really shorthanded at the front desk, and she was extremely helpful. And actually, she helped train a lot of our young students and high school students that came in and taught them what customer service was, which was a foreign concept to many of them. So for that, I will always be eternally grateful for you. And then, of course, moving up when Karen Taylor left and taking over the preschool and running it for all these many years, did a great job, and appreciate everything you've done. Thanks.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the Jared Scheineman from Campfire Concepts. Jared, if you could come to the podium and present the results of the community survey.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Can we get the survey on the screens? Thank you.
Jet,
There we go.
you got them now.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Before I introduce myself and tell you a little bit more about why I'm here, I wanted to say a couple of special thank yous. First, to the residents of Vernon Hills and the Vernon Hills Park District. You all responded to the survey in droves and spent a lot of time participating in the survey. So thank you for sharing your input for the Vernon Hills Park District future. I want to say also that, all the statistics, all the planning in the world can't replace someone like Gail. So if she was still here, I would say my congratulations to her as well on her well-deserved retirement. Nothing can replace that professional that cares and has the one-to-one connection with your residents. So I think that translates well into the rest of your staff. So I want to say thank you to them as well, because they gave a lot of their time to me and working on preparing the survey, showing me around the district, helping me get to know your community better. All those things are very integral in the process of developing a survey and gathering input from your people. As far as I go, my background, I hail from the University of Illinois. I went to school there and got a master's in recreation management and worked for an office that was similar to Extension. It's a service unit primarily working almost exclusively with park districts. And I did that for about 10 years. I figure I traveled about 100,000 miles in the state, worked in over 200 communities around Illinois. And one of the things I learned from my mentor, who was a former director of a park district, was when you start out the process, you kind of want to get in the hair of the park district professionals that you're going to be working with. So as I start off a survey, I like to come to the community and tell them I want a tour and I want to, talk about and engage with the survey. And I also want to see how they interact with each other. I want to see how they interact with the public. And I can tell you there's one specific instance while I was here where someone from the public called up one of your staff. They immediately mobilized the chain of command to help with one of the concerns that was being expressed to them. And within half an hour, they had the issue resolved and everyone was happy. And it's just something that's really amazing when you see the system that works that well. And I think that's evidenced in your survey results as well. I can tell you from all my travels that I think your parks, from my professional opinion, your parks, your facilities, your staff are second to none. It's very rare that I come into a community and I go to a flagship park with lakes and I don't see any geese. And I see everything well maintained and I see lots of people using your parks and facilities. There are many districts out there that are concerned that they drive through their communities and their parks aren't being used, and yours are. So kudos to you all. I also want to thank the commissioners and your involvement and your input as it comes to the survey. Looking forward to engaging with you tonight. I'm not here to convince you of anything or push you in any particular direction. I'm here to make a few suggestions. I hope you can make some suggestions to me and we can explore what the results of this survey mean. So without further ado, I'll start with the framework for the presentation tonight. What I want to start off with and let you know, if I can get my own slides here going, sorry about that. We're going to start off and talk about the goals of the study. We're then going to move into the methods and how we collected the data. Then we'll talk about the response and the results, and I'll give you some of my observations. Hopefully you'll have some questions and comments. Please feel free to stop me along the way, ask anything that you want. I also gave you my business card. It's got my cell phone number, email address on it. If you're driving home tonight or if you're thinking about the survey results later in the week and you have more questions, I'm always available. Please feel free to reach out to me if you need to. So hopefully we'll get through this and I won't have you all sleeping by the end of the night. The goals for the study, we wanted to look at participation and use patterns. We wanted to see why or why not do people use your parks and facilities and programs and events. And then if someone says they do not use one of these particular amenities or offerings for the Vernon Hills Park District, why don't they use those things? Then we want to look at satisfaction and concerns. We also wanted to determine residents' unmet program needs, facility needs, park needs. We looked at different constraints and barriers to participation and use, preferred methods of communication, and then finally we wrapped up with what are your priorities for the Vernon Hills Park District for the future. As far as the methods go, we looked at the 2014 survey and we pulled some questions. We kind of co-created the survey between the Vernon Hills Park District and myself and some of the surveys I've done in the past. And it was administered online through SurveyMonkey. There was 34 questions that were made available to residents and users of the park district. And they were emailed a link 6 times over the course of June and July. The same time that the survey was sent out was also put on social media. And then there was 4 different locations where participation was solicited with a tablet that they could also participate online as well. And staff administered that at that point. Participants were offered a $10 incentive in order to be part of the survey. And that related to different things with the park district, programs, events, etc. I think you'll agree with me that the park districts that are really good find beauty in the details. You can see here an image of some details in one of your playgrounds. I went to one of your facilities, the Lakeview Fitness, and as I walked in, your front desk staff person stood up and greeted me. That's uncommon, I think, at other park districts. It's a really great service technique that they're dropping what they're doing. They're not looking at their phone. They're not looking at their computer. They're giving me my full attention. So I think beauty is in the details. That's what sets park districts apart. And as we get into the details, I hope that you'll find that there's some beauty in what you've received in your response as well. Overall, there was 1,174 people that participated in the survey. 932 of them identified themselves as Village of Vernon Hills residents. If you look at the overall response, I think it's unparalleled in other surveys that I participated in or administered. Usually response is right around 400. So you all and your staff were able to get almost 3 times what the average is of people that are willing to participate. It's roughly 3.5% of your population. And this response, like I said, was very significant. I think we also need to understand that there were some responses that were similar. So without actually collecting the address data, what would be different between this survey and other surveys is that other surveys will ask for one respondent to respond for their whole household. So you may have had some cases where 2 people from the same household responded, which would be a little bit different from other surveys in other communities. I forgot to also let you know that when I pulled some of this, the charts and data from the actual survey report, it was done in InDesign, and that translated into Microsoft on a Mac. So I gave you hard copies to look at as well. So I apologize if some of the things that you see here aren't as legible as they could be. They got lost in translation. But one of the first results that I want to share with you is we asked a question. We used skip logic in the survey, which means if someone said no to a question, it put them to a different question. If someone said yes, it put them to a different question. So if a respondent said they don't hail from Vernon Hills, we asked them what community do they reside in. And there was a lot of different responses, as you can see. The number 1 was Mundelein, which I think relates to just being involved in District 73. Just by the variety of people that participated that come from different communities that surround you. Some were from out of state. I think one was international. People responding that they came to some of your events. I really think that shows that your park district has a regional reach. Yeah, so I think that's all I'm going to say about that one. Then we asked residents, how long have they lived within the areas serviced by the Vernon Hills Park District? I think what you can tell that follows some of the things I've heard and seen and what's going on in your community is that there's a new wave of young families that are moving in the area. This obviously has programming and amenities implications for you all for the future. I think older adults is evidenced in the survey are active in Vernon Hills and in the Vernon Hills Park District and want to be more active than maybe the average older adult would be. This is pretty typical to what you see for a survey, that you have a higher number of older adults that have responded or people that have lived in a community for a long time. They're the ones that tend to respond to these types of surveys the most. What is atypical is usually it's a curve that goes from the least amount of time in the community to the most amount of time in the community. So for you all to have response from people that have not been here a long time and would be considered younger adults shows great engagement from your community in the Park District and in their needs. Next, we asked, if you live in Vernon Hills, which neighborhood do you live in? There was a substantial response from the Deer Path neighborhood. Some park districts in these kind of surveys don't even receive 304 responses in their total response from their entire community. And you got that many responses from just your Deer Path neighborhood alone. I would say as you as you look at the different communities, different neighborhoods that we asked people to respond about, I feel like, if I remember correctly, I think there was 18 neighborhoods that we had listed, and then individuals had the chance to write in more comments after that. But I would consider looking at target marketing to the specific neighborhoods that had a lower response, and maybe offer also some other ways for them to do some kind of public input, especially if there's priority projects within those neighborhoods. All basic stuff I think that you probably already know. So one of the first questions we asked was, how frequently have you or members of your household used Vernon Hills Park District parks and or open space in the last 12 months? 93% said they have used it at least one time in the last 12 months. That's, according to the national average, pretty much is right around 70%. So for you to be at 93%, that shows significant use. The next stage that we like to look at is, how often are you using parks or open space? 56% of your users said, we use your parks or open space 25 or more times in a year. We like to call these individuals your core users. The average of other surveys that I've done for this is 25%. So your people are using your parks twice as much as what other surveys are, in my opinion. You also have a core user in every park. We asked the next question, write in what park you use the most. Yes?
Before we go, can you give us a breakdown of the 56 is 25 plus?
Yes.
What are the other?
Yes, sorry. So 16% is 11 to 25 times in a year. 10% is 6 to 10 times in a year. And 11% is 1 to 5 times in a year.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So your people then were asked, please write in what park you use the most frequently. Most communities, you'll get like 3 or 4 parks. That's all that people can really remember the names of. Royal Oak was the only one that did not receive a written answer. That's crazy. So that means you have a core user, somebody that's using each one of your parks 25 times or more in a year. These are your stewards. These are your eyes on the park. They're your potential hands and feet. These are your real possibilities for volunteerism and fundraising. I think as you look at your plan and your capital plan for the future and the needs that you have in your park specifically, you will have support to try and go for grants, and then matching funds to go with those grants, and volunteers to help extend what your staff are doing in the parks. I think they're there and they like what you're doing, as you'll see by the satisfaction levels later, but this is one of my suggestions I will leave you with at the end, is that you really think about leveraging your park users because they like what you're doing and they use your parks very often.
Excuse me one second. Commissioner Kessler,
I
please.
have a question for you.
Mhm.
Did we look at the breakdown based on the community they're from? For example, so many are from Deer Path, and so because they have a really nice big park close to them, and that's one of the ones that is used a lot, I'm curious if other subdivisions that maybe do not have as many parks, what that breakdown looks like. Because if you're saying such a large 93%, but if we're pulling from the majority of the people from Deer Path because they're the larger responder, it would be nice to know Greg's Landing or some of the ones that maybe do not have the parks. I see people walking up and down the sidewalks because we don't really have a park right in the backyard. Has that been looked at?
Yes, so I did cross-tabulation, which I have a slide on later.
Okay.
And I looked at neighborhood, age, number of years in the community, ethnicity, a number of other categories, and tried to figure out, are their responses different by these categories for these specific questions? There was a few subtle differences, but when I talked with Jeff about what to include in the report, there was not much difference. There was not a significant difference between neighborhood and the overall response and
So
what
if you
actual
did that,
parks they
you
use.
did this chart by neighborhood, you're still gonna get that same percentage?
Yes.
Okay.
And I had something else I was going to add to that. Oh, one of the things that was significant, I felt related to park use, which I'll talk about later, but individuals that identified as being in the community less than a year were more likely to use their neighborhood park than Century Park. And the rest of the respondents were more likely to use Century Park as their main thing than the neighborhood park, if that makes sense. That was the one major difference that I noticed in the crosstabs.
Thank you.
So like I said, we asked, what park or open space do you and your household visit most frequently? This was a write-in response. We had 1,011 responses to this specific question. It was crazy. People listed more than one park that they use most frequently, 609 times. Like I said, most communities get maybe 2 or 3 parks total. People were listing them in multiple ways for themselves. Some people had up to 5 or 6 parks that they had listed out. You can see here that as far as it goes, between a breakdown between the parks, Century Park had 214 comments. It was their first comment or only comment. I had a hard time figuring out, well, if I have these multiple comments written in, what weight are they putting on this? So I just decided I was gonna just list them by the order that they put them on there. So they also had, Century Park also had 77 comments as most frequently used between the 2nd and 5th comment. And you can see how that continues through descending order. So Century Park also listed as Big Bear Lake. Deer Path Park also listed as Castle Park and Kids Castle. And then Grosse Pointe Park, Hartman, Aspen, and Augusta were rounding out the most frequently listed parks that they use. So when I look at the next question we asked of those who are non-users, who are identified as non-users of parks and open space, they said that the reasons they didn't use the parks were because they lived outside of Vernon Hills Park District, they were too busy, they were not interested, or they aged out. That's one of the most common responses I think that you're gonna see in a park district these days is individuals have this perception that it's for kids. But more and more often, I think you're seeing that adults identify with play, and that play is part of their health and wellness. And that, I think, is gonna start bringing adults back into the park system and park districts and have understanding that the programs are for them. There was really no glaring issues or anything that really stood out in the non-use of parks and open space. There was a small number of non-users as well as it relates to this question.
Oh, I want to see him play again on that.
I can do that for you.
That's okay.
Let's see if I can get it to work. There we go.
There he goes.
You watch about halfway through in the middle, he kind of stumbles and makes a really cool turn to save it.
Oh, oh yeah. Cute.
They love coming along and checking out the playgrounds and all the cool stuff in other communities. All right, so then the next question we asked was, how frequently do you use paths within the park district system? Trail use and trails as desired amenities is far and away, above and beyond, the #1 thing people want. It's also one of the #1 things people use, as evidenced here as well. Usually trail use in other communities averages between 75 and 80%. You came in at 81%. 44% said they use your trails or your pathways more than 25 times. 16% said they use them 11 to 25 times. 12% said they use them 6 to 10 times in a year. And 9% said they use your paths 1 to 5 times in the last 12 months. Again, you have a very high core user group. That's the people that use it more than 25 times in a year. Other communities average around 30%. I want you to stop and just think about the health implications of path use in your community. If people are saying they're using it twice or 25 times or more than 25 times in a calendar year, and the CDC is asking for, 60 minutes of workout or exercise in a day, the Park District alone is having a significant impact on your community and on your community's overall health. So we followed up with the non-users and wanted to know why don't they use paths. Some of them indicated they live outside of the Vernon Hills Park District. Some said they were too busy. Others said they just weren't interested in paths. Most of the time when they said they weren't interested, they liked to walk indoors on a treadmill or in a controlled environment. Some said they had health constraints. They used other options, weather and bugs. A number of individuals said their children were babies, they were too young to be able to go out on the trail with them. Convenience was also a concern, and some of them said they were just not aware of what was available to them. Next, we asked how frequently have you or members of your household used programs offered by the Vernon Hills Park District? We had 1,050 individuals answer this question. 67% said they've used programs in the last 12 months. 22% said they used programs more than 25 times. 12% said they used them 11 to 25 times. 13% said 6 to 10 times. And 20% said we've used Vernon Hills Park District programs 1 to 5 times. Core user average on this and overall use is slightly below the national average. 70% is the national average for overall program use. And in the surveys that I've conducted, the more than 25 times is averaged around 25%. But when you look at the overall programs that they wrote in and listed that they've used, they listed 146 programs that they remembered and recalled. The numbers that they put together in the responses that they had was right around 1,200 total participants. So even though numbers are very close as it comes to your averages, they really know about your programs, and I think they really use them as well, as evidenced by the numbers that they listed. One thing that I see that's a little bit different than other communities is your team sport participation numbers were higher than in other communities. Team sports seems to be declining for park districts. That's an impact of travel sports in general. But just to show that your people are using your recreation programs, so to speak, is pretty interesting as well. Next, we asked if you don't use programs, why? Number one was aging out. There's just this perception and stigma that park districts, or even play in general, is a kid's thing. It's just a cultural commonality. We really need to work hard, I think, to break this barrier and to overcome that. Sometimes older adults are unaware of what options are available for them as well as part of that aging out perception. They also listed time constraints and lack of interest in general was reasons that they just didn't participate in programs. Next, we asked about special events. Same question. How many times have you gone to a special event in the last 12 months? And this is pretty standard across the board. Special events are offered a little bit less often. So it's not surprising that the majority of users, the 35%, was 1 to 5 times I've gone to a special event in the last 12 months. 49% total said we've gone to a special event. We've attended a special event of the Vernon Hills Park District in the last year. 8% said 6 to 10 times. 3% said 11 to 25 times. And 3% said more than 25 times. And one of the things that came out of this that was very interesting to me, as they were able to list special events and programs, We didn't put any real specifications for them as to what those things should be. And one thing I didn't expect was, as they listed out special events, sometimes they put programs in, which I think speaks to the fact that some people may consider a program that they're able to participate in as a special event for them or their household, even though we in the Park District field might not consider it to be. It might be something that their family can only afford to do and not be able to do the other special events. So that was really an interesting thing to consider as well. As far as the special events they listed, Rib Fest was the one that was listed the most often. Summer Celebration, then came all of the different holiday events that the Park District offers. There was 42 total special events that was listed. I would say that there was some confusion about what the Summer Celebration is and who offers that, etc. I want to note that even some of the smaller events have recognition in the survey by respondents as well. We asked then, if you haven't participated in the special events, why? And some of them said, we're not interested or no reason. We have various time constraints, schedule conflicts, there's just general awareness concerns. Our children have aged out. I don't know a reason. I'm not really sure why we haven't. We participate in events in our own community, and then rounding it out with there's just not much available that would serve older adults in the special events arena. Then we moved on to asking about use at specific facilities. Lakeview Fitness was the first one we asked about. 51% said that they participated and have done something at the Lakeview Fitness in the last 12 months. 33% of those users said we've done that, we've visited more than 25 times. 5% said we visited 11 to 25 times. 6% said 6 to 10 times in the last calendar year. And 7% said 1 to 5 times in the last 12 months. That also is evidence of a strong core user group. Special facilities usually have core user groups that visit more than 25 times in a year, around 20%. And yours was at 33%. So there is a strong core group of people that are using Lakeview Fitness, in my opinion. This one's a little bit difficult to read, a little bit smaller because of the translation, but we asked individuals that did not use Lakeview Fitness why. And the top reason was they belong to another gym or a club, financial concerns, no interest in using a fitness facility, time constraints. I think in general, if you look at it, everybody's kind of looking for a deal, and they want the biggest and best for the nicest, and the nicest for the cheapest amount. If you look at what was listed here and also later, the one that they use the most often is Lifetime Athletic or Lifetime Fitness, whichever you would determine that as it relates to a private fitness entity. People also said they like to work out outside. This could be something that you could leverage. I think this is an opportunity that private fitness does not have. You have park space that you could combine some of your programs and fitness programs with what's going on at Lakeview Fitness in Sullivan to leverage and use to your advantage. A lot of individuals said they work out at home and use home fitness and fitness on demand at their house. I've often wondered why park districts don't band together and take their best fitness instructors and put them on a YouTube channel or a television and work together to offer some great programs and bring in some extra revenue that way. So that would be an interesting concept to think about. The really interesting thing that came out of this is they had a lot less issues with schedule constraints. When we asked about why don't you use events, why don't you use parks, why don't you use programs, one of the top answers was always, we just have schedule conflicts within our family. We can't do it. When it relates to fitness, I think people understand that they need to be fit, they need to be healthy, and they need to make time for that. And they didn't say that schedule was an issue for them. They said time, they said we're too busy, personally, but they knew that working with their family and working with other schedules was not an excuse for them. There was kind of, in some ways, a bad reaction to fitness centers in general. That follows with a trend with individuals that have body image issues. So making a facility and offerings and opportunities where everybody feels welcome is something I think that is a challenge for all park districts in general too. Next, we asked about the Sullivan Community Center and use patterns in the last 12 months. 66% said they've visited the facility at least once. 28% said 1 to 5 times in the last 12 months. 11% said 6 to 10 times. 8% said 11 to 25 times. And 19% said more than 25 times in the last year. There's more users, it appears, that just generally come into the Sullivan Community Center when compared to Lakeview Fitness. And there's less maybe amenities, maybe there's more programs, a variety of programs. Maybe it's just more visible as it compares to where Lakeview Fitness is and location compared to the aquatic center. But there's also definitely a less core user base when specifically compared to Lakeview Fitness. Normally, special facilities like this are around 60% overall use in other surveys, and 66% is definitely above the average. What is different about Sullivan Community Center and the reasons why individuals do not use Sullivan compared to Lakeview Fitness? The one that stood out was awareness. They said, in general, the comments were along the lines of, I don't know what that facility is for. I'm not sure what goes on there. So that was very different in the response. It's a possibility that the community center in general is a niche. It's different than anything else that's offered in the community, and how can you leverage that as well? I think it's just ripe for success with some of the renovations that you've done here. And there's really no competition for that in the community. So next we asked about the Family Aquatic Center use. Really a normal response that you would see for an aquatic center. 53% said they've used it in the last year. 9% said more than 25 times. That's a really difficult number to try and achieve when you're only open a couple of months of the year. And 11% said 11 to 25 times. 12% said 6 to 10. 21% said 1 to 5 times. You know, a lot of communities around Illinois are just seeing challenges with aquatic centers, being able to staff lifeguards, have the facility fully open. In particular, in central Illinois, it's very difficult. It's been in the papers a lot, so I can understand how use patterns are different for aquatic centers in the last couple of years, and making sure you have the right staff and the right opportunities for people in your community, especially with lifeguards that are mostly college kids and go back to school in September, and you have a lot of hot days in September yet, and the pool has to close because of limited staff. We asked about, then we followed up with the question, if you haven't used the Family Aquatic Center in the last 12 months, why not? Number one answer was just no interest or no reason. Sometimes they respond and said, I'm just not a swimmer. Which could be a possibility of programming for you in the future if adult swim lessons might be an interesting option and opportunity. There was also some comments about aging out, believing that their kids are too young for this activity, or their kids are too old for the activity. They use other competition, local pools, Lifetime, or Lakeview Fitness is one that they also listed. Go to a friend or family member's pool. There was a number of individual comments about the Family Aquatic Center in general, and I think they all had specific issues and concerns when they said different comments and things, and I think a number of those can be alleviated just with direct conversations and openness and willingness to share. So then we moved on and asked about competition, for lack of better terms. During the last 12 months, how many times did your household utilize the following local providers for your household's park, recreation, education, and health and wellness needs? They were allowed to check one box for each service provider that we listed. 955 people responded to this, and Lake County Forest Preserve District was the number one most used. Other local park district facilities was number 2. Recreation activities provided by the library was number 3. And then it dropped off significantly after that with golf courses, school sports teams, etc. Lifetime Athletic was the number 1 private fitness facility that was listed. I'm going to get into this a little bit later as it relates to how this compares to the 2014 survey, but use of the Forest Preserve District, use of other park districts, and use of the library all increased pretty significantly from the last survey. Next, we asked, how would your household prefer to learn about programs and services offered by the Vernon Hills Park District? They could select more than one option. There was 951 total respondents to this question. Newspaper saw the biggest decline, but email and social media really grew exponentially, almost doubled compared to last time. In the surveys that I've completed, it's probably the closest gap between the program guide and the broadcast email and social media that I've seen. There's just a lot of conversations on what's the best way to reach our people, online, print, etc. And I think yours is the closest that I've seen of your use, really increasing of online ways of learning about what you do. One thing that was concerning to me was that your word of mouth dropped, and it's also very low in your overall use. I think it's listed here as number 6. Normally it's in the top 3 in the surveys that I do. Sometimes it's even the second one behind program guide for ways that people find out about what you do and what you offer at the park district.
But couldn't it be argued that Facebook is essentially what today's word of mouth?
Yeah. Yeah, I think
I go on, I put my comment, and they're seeing it as Facebook, but they're really taking a comment from me that yeah.
Mm-hmm. Judging by the fact that they selected both, that there was responses for both, I think there is some delineation, but I think that's also a valid thing to say, that Facebook is a way that people learn from other individuals about things that are going on in the community, for sure. So next we asked a bunch of satisfaction questions, and I look at this a little bit differently than sometimes what other consultants do. What they will typically do is they will remove the don't use from satisfaction questions, but I like to leave them in to show you that it was a valid response, that they don't use it or they don't know about a particular program. So in light of that, your numbers were still really astronomical in a lot of ways. If you combine your very satisfied and somewhat satisfied categories, normally the average is 70%, and yours are significantly higher than that in a lot of areas. Another thing that I always see is somewhat satisfied is always higher than very satisfied. Most of your responses are flip-flopped as it relates to that. To receive a very satisfied percentage of 67% for outdoor spaces, parks, sports fields, paths, playgrounds, etc., that's almost as high as what people average for the combined total of very satisfied and somewhat satisfied. If you look at the overall satisfaction level for the Vernon Hills Park District, 87%. If you look at the number of comments and written comments and responses that you receive, I think there's just a tendency when you look at survey results like that, you can get discouraged. But if you look at the umbrella and say, people are satisfied with what we're doing, 87%. It's 17% higher than the national level. That's a significant thing to look at to frame how you're looking at the rest of the survey. So I would be very happy with the response and the overall satisfaction levels of your community. If you look at the, I also want to point out, if you look at the split of programs and individuals that say they don't use adult programs or children's programs, they were at 44% and 48%. That's fairly close to the average on other surveys, which is right around 40%. So I don't want you to think that that's a large number and it looks lopsided in one direction. It's pretty average compared to other surveys. So then we asked individuals to rank a facility or program that the Park District should develop or expand. And we asked them to rank their top 4 choices. So what you see here in this graph is a conglomerate of the total of each one. In blue is their first ranking, their first choice. Orange is the second choice, gray is third, and yellow is the 4th choice. So adult fitness and wellness programs were number 1 in total and also number 1 for the first choice. Dog park was number 2, indoor swimming, and then adult group fitness was number 3. One thing you don't see represented on here is that before and after school programs ranked number 4 overall and number 1 choice. So individuals that use the before and after school program obviously think that's their most important thing for the Park District to focus on. One thing to also consider is we had a response that said you can rank none, existing services are adequate, as one of your choices. And the total for that ranked number 23 out of all the responses. Normally it's like 1, 2, or 3 for other park districts. In my opinion, I think that shows that people are interested and trusting in what you offer and what you are going to put forward in the next couple of years. Next chart just kind of generally shows you the demographics of the people that responded. Majority of the people that responded were female. Well, also let me tell you too that we had 784 total respondents out of the 1,174 respondents that gave us some demographics information. So we are missing a pretty good chunk of people when we're looking at the demographics of who participated. As you look at the different household ranges, it's pretty average. Really interesting, I think, that if you put together the numbers that the biggest household sizes was at age 75 or more, if you average them out. And we're fairly close to the 2010 census, but I know things have changed pretty drastically since that time. So some certain specific populations you may want to consider reaching out to in the future to do some targeted public input. As I referenced earlier, I did some cross-tabulation where I looked at specific variables and tried to match them with other variables to see if there was any significant differences. I looked at the residents, how long they've lived here, neighborhood, how it compares, ethnicity, and gender. And I already talked about how those that are here less than a year were less likely to use Century Park and more likely to use their neighborhood park. One thing that was surprising to me is that individuals that said they've lived here 25 or more years, that 30% had a child under the age of 5 living in their household. So that was interesting to me. I don't know if that's a trend where it's possible an individual just was born here and grew up here and then is now having children and living in the community still, or if it's possible that, you know, older adults have their kids moving back in with them, and they're having kids now. So it brings up to consideration household composition and how that plays into programming and events and different things that you're offering in the future. Greg's Landing was as you referenced, was the least frequent user, but they had the biggest variety of places that they would go and biggest variety of events that they would participate in as well. Stone Fence Farms stood out as the least likely neighborhood to use Vernon Hills Park District programs. Oops. Here's the one that I find the most interesting is comparatives with your survey from 2014. Response, you had a great response in 2014, twice what the average would be. And you tripled what the average would be in this year. Resident responses went down slightly, but still very close. As you can see, the neighborhoods were also very close in the numbers. Number of individuals who said they have attended a special event in the last year. That went down from 65% in 2014 to 49% in 2019. As we referenced also that the other public government entities grew significantly. Lake County Forest Preserve District went from 53% to 67% use. Other park districts went from 22% to 51%. Libraries weren't even in your top 5 last time, and they were in your top 5 this time. Park district brochure use went down, word of mouth went down, which could be possibly related to Facebook use going up, and broadcast email also went up as well. Just these trends in use of other public government. I think libraries in general in the last 5 to 10 years have been really thinking through what their mission is, what they're offering to their communities. They've been getting into recreation programming more often. It's just a good opportunity, I think, for park districts to partner with them in the future, being the experts in recreation programming. So there's the general results. You've seen kind of what's on the vine. You know what's maybe more ripe in your opinion, what's more of a priority for you all, maybe what should stay on the vine and be included in a future plan. Sometimes it's just flowers, and you might see that they're going to grow into something in the future. But I'm interested to see if you have any initial impressions, or I can just kind of go into some of my observations, and you can ask some questions at the end as well. Open to whichever you would prefer to do moving forward here. All right. So here's the pieces that I've put together. This is how I've assembled some of my observations and hope you can fit some things together in your strategic plan here for the future. We've got very high use patterns and incredible survey participation. I would suggest that you leverage your users of your parks and pathways and facilities. I think they're ripe for fundraising. I think they're ripe for participating in helping you seek out grants in the future. I think they can really extend what your staff is doing. There are individuals that have made specific statements and said, I want this specific thing to happen at this specific location. That's a great opportunity, since they're a user, to engage with them and say, well, how can you help us, and how can we get your community, how can we get your neighborhood involved? People obviously care about, appreciate, and use what you have to offer. And that's just more opportunity for them to continue to get involved. There may or may not be a recognition of what Lakeview is up to, Lakeview Fitness is up to regarding trends. If you look at the programs that people listed, a number of them said Lakeview Fitness programs are what I participate in as part of the park district. But they didn't specifically list some of the major trending fitness opportunities, group fitness, yoga, Zumba, etc. So is it just that they don't know about it? Is it just that they use Lakeview and they're using the opportunities that are there and don't consider it? But I think there's really an opportunity at Lakeview Fitness to figure out what's our niche going to be there in the future. With all the competition, all the private fitness that's in the community, I would suggest you take a good look at Lakeview Fitness and figure out, well, what do we want this facility to be, and how are we going to capture the market that we want to at that specific location? Respondents were unsure of, or most unaware of, what goes on at Sullivan. As far as the community center, other communities may have it, but it's going to be a unique niche also in your community. So helping to raise awareness of this facility, helping to use the space that's maybe empty at times would be a good opportunity. I think Vernon Hills Park District does a good job of partnering with other forms of local government, and judging by the use patterns of your people and them using forest preserve districts, other local park districts, the libraries more often, it just makes sense for you to partner with them. You have specific skills in recreation and parks that some of them don't. You have specific skills in special events. They might have more specific skills in environmental programming or in education that you can leverage and work together. So I think it just makes sense for you all to consider partnering. I think your marketing, as far as your marketing goes, you are utilizing all the channels very well. People are using all of them. As print continues to be something that costs a lot of money and is still an effective way of reaching some individuals. They say that Pew Research said that 87% of people have access to the internet on a daily basis, so that means 13% don't. So having print materials are still important for some residents in your community and will remain so for into the future. But as far as looking at other park districts in the state, you all are closer to transitioning and doing a better job in the online realm than most, I think. Lastly, in just thinking about ranking and what your residents thought about potential improvements or ways to expand what you're offering, they're really interested in adult fitness and wellness programs. They were interested in a dog park, indoor swimming pool at Lakeview Fitness, adult group exercise, and special events. I think you've set a high bar for yourself in your community. I think they are satisfied and very satisfied with what you're doing. I think that they expect a lot from you and will into the future. So they're watching you, and they also care and want to be involved in the future as well. So that's really what I saw in the results as a nutshell and a general overview of what came out of your survey. Like I said, I'm not here to convince you in one direction or another which way to go, but I'd be interested to hear what you all saw from the report and from the presentation, and staff welcome their comments as well.
Commissioner Robbins.
I have a few questions. Now, when you did the survey, you received back from our population 3.5%. When you've done these other surveys, is that a normal percentage? Is that low? What?
It's high, yeah.
Very high.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Normally it's around 380 to 400 surveys that we receive back. In order to generalize to the population, you want to hit right around 385 for a community of your size.
And with that amount, you can come up with fair ideas of how to improve things, and even with that low percentage.
Yeah, absolutely.
The one thing that that concerns me is on a number of these issues and programs and facilities that we have is the awareness. How many people are not aware of different items that are offered at the Sullivan Center, different programs, unaware of options for the older adults. I'm not sure how you define older adults. How do we counteract this awareness issue? Is it more marketing? How do we get our population to become aware of different things that we actually have?
Yeah, I would say I think you're doing a good job of marketing. If you look at the amount of different ways that people learn about their the things that are offered by the Park District and their preferences. Community engagement is a key piece of that. We had a lot of neighborhoods that participated, and there are leaders in each neighborhood. I would say reaching out to them and bringing them into the conversation and figuring out, there's a lot of different demographics I would judge by particular neighborhoods. They have different needs by neighborhood probably too. So engaging with those neighborhoods, engaging with other community leaders, just letting them know what's out there. And when your staff and volunteers and people that are involved with the Park District have conversations with individuals in the community, listen. And when they're telling you, my kids are like teenagers now and there's nothing available for them, that's the perfect opportunity to jump in and say, do you know the Park District offers this? Do you know that this is going on in the Park District? There's just so much noise that's out there right now as it comes to social media, and I'm not sure that that's a good channel to increase marketing in. But I think there are ways in engagement that would be helpful.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. One thing too, if I might add as well, other communities also have ad hoc committees and other varieties of advisory councils that happen, and that kind of is centered around neighborhoods, and those opportunities then spread the influence of the Park District and what's going on throughout the community. I'm not sure how much of that you do already, and don't want to step on anybody's toes, but that might be another way of doing it too.
We do have that advisory committee. There's about 6 or 8 of them?
6.
Mhm.
Okay.
Geographically based, so we try to select a member from each of the different neighborhoods
Mhm.
Right.
that are represented, yep.
Yeah, that might be a good priority for them if it's not already in the future. What events are you going to? What ways are you highlighting what the Park District is doing?
Yeah, I guess I go back to thinking about the different communities, and if we need to reach them differently, because based on the usage and awareness and things like that. I'm not sure if there's anything we can learn by doing the cross tabulation between breaking it down by the different subdivisions. I'm not sure if there's anything, or if it's gonna be, sounds like it's gonna be the same numbers
Right.
as far as usage, although you did say there's, I think in your example, Greg's Landing had a lower usage rate, and I wonder if that is awareness, like I wonder if you pull it out, if there's something we can learn from that community and other communities that are a little bit lower in response.
Yeah. Yeah, crosstabs I think work best when you're looking at specifics. So if there are specific variables that you want me to research and bring forward, I'd be happy to do that for you.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure, you don't know until you start playing with the numbers of what it
Right.
would be like. And I don't know if the numbers, because some of those communities are small, response rate, is it statistically
Right.
useful information?
Right.
I don't know.
In the analysis that I did, there wasn't any significant difference.
Okay.
What is have you calculated the confidence interval and the margin of error?
Yeah,
This amount of people for our population?
plus or minus 3%.
What's the confidence interval of? You know what I mean? Plus or minus 3%, 95% of the time, 90% of the time?
Yeah, 95.
Within 2 standard deviation kind of thing?
Right, 95% of the time.
95% of the time, with only 3%?
Yes.
Okay.
Question regarding the possible improvements. Indoor swimming pool and adult group exercise, both of which we have. So are those, they're looking for additional, or are those, they don't know we have them and we need to be better about getting it out to them?
So the question stated, what facilities and programs should the Park District develop or expand?
Okay.
Could be both.
Yeah, okay.
I just want to comment on that. You
mentioned that Lakeview had a strong core group. And I feel like the pool people are a strong core group. Are a strong core group at Lakeview, and I think they're really vocal. And I wonder how much, and it's only a guess, but, because there's a lot of comments about more lanes for some of the classes and stuff. And I don't know if you could delve into that. I don't know if there's any way to cross-reference that. But I think because overall, I don't know how many swimmers there really are to have that big of a response, but I think they're a very vocal group.
Water aerobics?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yes,
I mean,
yes, they are.
overall,
I would
they're
agree.
not a huge number of members, but they're very vocal.
Yeah, and I know the lane situation is one that's been an issue since
And that's the
Quite a while.
one problem with a voluntary survey. You're not going out and asking people, you're getting responses in based on their desire to give input rather than stopping 50 people in the street in Vernon Hills and asking them
Right.
the same question. You know, that you'd get two entirely different sets of data points.
It's the people, who have something to say.
Right.
Well, we are working on the pool situation, so there are discussions going on to try to help alleviate that situation. Any other questions? Rod, thank you very much. Very much appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thank you all for your time as well.
Next item on the agenda is the WW Granger invoice payable. Can I have a motion to approve the WW Granger invoice payable in the amount of $814.22?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Baloo?
Yes.
Commissioner Robbins?
Yes.
Commissioner Meline?
Yes.
Commissioner Kessler?
Yes.
President Dorhofer?
Abstain. Next item on the agenda is reports communication. Executive Director Jeff Hoosier. Jeff?
Okay, well, thank you. Just thanks to Jared for his time in presenting tonight. A lot of time and effort went into the survey. This is my third round of community surveys since I've been here, and I gotta say this by far was, I think, the best. I'll just say overall, just the dialogue, the communication I've had with Jared, just his engagement in the community. He spent several days coming up here. He does reside in Champaign, so, to make the trek up and spend time really talking to people in our parks and our facilities, I think it helped. He spent time with board members. He spent a lot of time with staff members. So I feel like the value that the district received in bringing Jared on to handle this particular project for the district is good. On top of that, he and I met with Carol Sente today to just kind of engage in some of the results and comments that we felt are going to help us at least advance on a strategic level. And we hear some things, some conversation tonight that I hear from the board, even with maybe some of these crosstabs and how we can do a better job of reaching out into some of our different segments of our populations that maybe we're not reaching, and we should talk about those things. And I think those are important conversations we'll have. So on that note, I want to remind the board that our September 19th board meeting, we're going to meet right here, and we will be at 4 p.m. And so Carol will be present. She has an assistant that'll be taking notes. It is a public meeting because we will have a quorum of that. So we will run it as a regular meeting, and we'll plan on spending it at minimum a couple hours, and then we'll envelope right into our regular board meeting thereafter. Prior to that meeting, the staff will be meeting, the full-time staff will be meeting with Carol the week before, and so we'll be coming probably into the meeting with the park board with some of maybe the efficiencies that the full-time staff may be looking at. And then finally, on Saturday, October 5th, we'll be meeting as an entire organization, board and staff, to just basically decide all the direction, initiatives, et cetera, that we want to advance in our next strategy plan for the next 5 years. Wanted to just say that the Hawthorne School District has been, the new administration has been just fantastic to work with in a short period of time. As many of you know, for the last several years that we've run the before and after school program, we've had a number of families on our wait list, and to the anywhere between 75 and 100 families consistently. And this past week, our staff, Tom Ritter and Anna Swain, who runs our program, and some of our site directors and myself met with some of the administration at the school district, and they've opened up additional spaces both on the north and south campus to allow us to get these people off the wait list. We're obviously in a position to ramp up and hire staff. We're doing everything we can within just our powers of media. Word of mouth is great, since we're a little shy on that, it seems. So whatever any of you as public officials can do in your walks of life that could let people know we're in a serious crunch to hire staff in specifically the after-school time frame, the 2:30 to like 6 p.m. period. You can visit our website. There's applications available. We're fast-forwarding to try and get as many of these families off the wait list as possible so that they can get into this program. So just a huge thanks to Pete Hannigan, the new superintendent at the school district, and Abe Singh that have worked with us to make this happen. And I think many of you had the opportunity to thank the school board over the weekend at the Rib Fest, and so I'm really happy about that. The Century Park South project, just a quick update. James and I and Rick Croza, our parks foreman, met with Copenhaver this morning. If you haven't seen the site, the grass that was put down is just absolutely horrible. It's been that way for several weeks. So we've been just somewhat, I'll just say, fighting a little bit with our contractor to get things resolved. And we got resolved this morning. So they're going to start from scratch. They're basically going to excavate the whole site once again. There's a lot of rocks and stone and debris. So the soil that we were delivered was just crap, plain and simple.
Rocks in there, just walking through after Rib Fest, they were literally rocks like
Yeah.
6-8 inches long,
So that's happening, and it's happening really quickly. I do want to thank Rick Croza. Rick is, our specialist on staff in terms of turf restoration. He went tete-to-tete with, they brought in some specialists, and Rick just killed them. It was beautiful. And so, to me, the guy he's just been really good for us in this respect, because we were expecting that they were going to really challenge us on the cost, and they've put a lot of money into it initially, and they're going to pay for every single nickel to get it restored and get it done right. James and his team are going to take some effort in terms of future just care on it, in terms of aeration and seeding, and making sure that the site becomes a nice park that is sustainable for people to use on a consistent basis, because we want to program it, and we've put a lot of money into that area. On a second note, the restroom facility, I know we are working. I still need some direction from the board in terms of a decision on some of the wainscoting, and then we'll get that application going and kind of just clean up the aesthetic look and the architectural look of the restroom. And then lastly, on that Grass Creek area, that's being taken care of. Again, it was an inferior application. We are working all together again with the contractor, and they're getting that resolved. So that is 75% done, James, that area, yes. That Grass Creek, and a better underneath application that is going to be a little more pronounced in terms of just stability of any future activity on that site. Lastly, I wanted to thank Joe and Joe's team with Lakeview, the time that we were shut down over early August and through mid-August. That Joe and the time that they spent, just literally all the detail cleaning that facility, not something that we take for granted in terms of the hours they put in. Many of us at home don't like to clean our own bathrooms and spend the time, and you can imagine cleaning what they had to do for 5 days, every day, 8 hours a day. So thanks to Joe and his team for that. That would conclude my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Jeff? Thank you very much. Next item, Finance and HR Superintendent Marla DeSico. Marla?
I will keep it brief. I'm just going to point out one item. I'd like to thank Representative Didich and Governor Pritzker for amending the Equal Pay Act. We were proud to go ahead and amend our applications. This is the requirement now to remove salary history from applications and references. So this is a really positive step towards reducing the gender pay gap. Any questions on the rest of my report?
Any questions? Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is Recreation Superintendent Tom Ritter. Tom?
All right, good evening. I want to remind our residents that we are winding down the summer season. It's always a sad time. It went very quickly since it started so late this year, but the Family Aquatic Center is now into its post-season reduced hours now that all of our high school and college student staff have gone back to school. The Aquatic Center will be open Saturdays and Sundays from noon to 5 through Labor Day. So Labor Day itself will be included in that Saturdays and Sundays. So last day is September 2nd. Preschool staff will be returning to their classrooms the week of Monday, August 26th, which is next week. Getting their rooms set up. Parents and children will be coming out to see the classrooms, getting to meet their teachers. First day of school is September 3rd. We have about 95 kids at this point, with some people still coming in to enroll. I'll jump down to the bottom of my report just because it's related. As we bid a fond farewell to Gail this evening, I also wanted to welcome our new early childhood supervisor, which is Julie Friels. Julie's been, over 10 years she's been in our field of Parks and Recreation with an emphasis on early childhood, and she comes directly from Elmhurst. We're really excited about her. She's fitting in already. We had a little bit of overlap, so she and Gail can transition as one leaves and one comes in, and they're bonding very well this week. They're off to a really good start. So if anyone comes to Sullivan and sees a new face, please welcome Julie to the recreation team. Final movie in the park this summer will be held tomorrow night, Friday at Deer Path. We'll be showing Monsters, Inc., so its forecast is good, so hopefully people will come out and enjoy our showing. We have 2 special events in September I wanted to highlight. September 14th, Saturday, from 11 to 1, will be our annual Worldwide Day of Play. It's become a staple of ours in our special event offerings. If I didn't say it, it's being held at Century Park Pavilion. It is a free event. The whole purpose of it is to encourage people to get out, get off their computers, get away from the TV, come out as a family and participate in some free activities. We do a lot of traditional things like potato sack races and hula hoop contests, egg tosses. We do treasure hunts. We bury stuff in the volleyball sand, and the kids have a great time with their families. We do provide some food and drink. We usually get somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 to 200 people to show up. So please mark that on your calendars. We'd love to see you come out, participate. And then late in September, on Friday the 27th, at the Sullivan Center, we'll have our 3rd annual Family Trivia Night from 6:30 to 9. It is geared more towards families. It's not adult trivia. It's more family and kid-based. We provide pizza and snacks with your registration. We award prizes to the top 3 winners, and there's door prizes throughout the evening. So it's $50 for a team. You can have up to 6 people on a team. So a lot of times they come out with their neighbors and friends, and a few teams play against each other and have some fun with that. And finally, I wanted to mention that our farmers market was scheduled to run through August this first summer. It's, as a reminder, it's Thursdays from 3 to 7 p.m. And as it's a kind of a late harvesting season, we had a late start to the summer. A couple of the vendors asked if we could run later, which made sense. So the final date will now be Thursday, September 26th. And again, that's held in the new Century Park South parking lot next to the training center for Rust-Oleum. And that's my report. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Tom? Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda, Park Superintendent James Kim.
I would like to just start with a couple Village of Vernon Hills comments. One was congratulations to Kim Christensen for their National Night Out event at Hartman Park. It was a huge success, and I just want to thank them for the use of our park and keeping it well maintained afterwards. The Village of Vernon Hills is having an open house over at their public work facility at 490 Greenleaf Drive. The park district will have a table with games and giveaways. The event is free. It is next Wednesday, August 28th from 4 to 7. Over at the VHAC site, there is a soccer tournament the Labor Day weekend, that is not being put on by the park district. So if there's any questions, please contact the village. And lastly, for all of our residents, if you have any questions about the Lashin Center demolition or development, please contact the Village of Vernon Hills. There's going to be 2 soccer field additions to our park district. One almost full-size field will be added to the north end of Deer Path near the Warrington Shelter, and a second will be added at Hawthorne Melody Park north where the ball field used to be. And right now, internally, we are discussing permanent lacrosse goals over in Deer Path. And lastly, I just want to say that our solar panel project is in the books. They have ordered the panels, and we hope to have everything fully installed and operational by Thanksgiving. And that concludes my report. If there's any questions.
Any questions for James? Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is Marketing and Communications Manager, Cheryl Opium. And Cheryl?
Good evening. Just quickly, if you look at my report, as Jared pointed out, our social media is very strong. So we are experimenting with some different reporting. So I did include across all of our social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, of what increased just in the past month. So you can just take a look at that. We do have a total of almost 6,000 people who follow us on a daily basis. So it's really increasing, and it's helping quite a bit. I did want to update you. I did put that our Family Aquatic Center Groupon to date has changed since I wrote my report. We did receive another deposit of a little bit over $11,000. So total, our district has received $33,255 for that FAC Groupon. We will be getting, I believe, definitely one more check, maybe 2, but probably just 1. And everybody who's purchased a Groupon must use it by September 2nd. So that's doing very well. Today, I had sent out a PALS Help Wanted to our constant contact subscriber list of close to 10,000 people. So that went out this afternoon. So hopefully Anna will receive some applications from that email that went out. And just to mention to our public, our Chalk the Walk Go Vernon Hills special event is next Thursday evening in Deer Path Park at 5:30. We provide all the chalk. You're going to decorate the paths near Kids Castle, and then as a group, we'll take a 30-minute walk. And that's my report for the evening.
Any questions for Cheryl?
I have one question.
Commissioner Robbins.
You mentioned there's 6,000 followers.
Yes.
Do you have any idea what percentage of those are Vernon Hills residents?
I could see if we can get that reporting. I'm not sure. We have purchased a new platform for all of our social media, so they offer different reporting. So we're just experimenting, but I can check into that for you.
Next item on the agenda, Facility Manager Joe Zimmerman. Joe?
Good evening.
Oh.
Talk into the can.
Just start with a couple statistics for July 2019. As of July 31st, we had 2,177 active members. We had 11,514 member visits during the month, 265 personal training sessions, and 3,803 group fitness attendees. Moving into aquatics notes, lessons, swim lessons, finishing up for the summer, they were up compared to the previous summer. Swim team had tryouts August 19th through the 20th, and the swim team season starts back up with a stroke clinic the week of September 2nd. A few Lakeview fitness notes. Starting September 1st, we will begin our 60-day challenge. Participants who complete 60 visits to Lakeview Fitness between September 1st and December 31st will earn a 60 days t-shirt and a free month of membership. Current Lakeview Fitness members may participate at no charge. If you're not a member, don't worry, you can still participate. It is $60 for a resident non-member and $75 for a non-resident non-member. those can be purchased starting now. They're just not active until September 1st, and you can buy that at Lakeview or purchase online at the Park District website. September is also National Yoga Month, and to celebrate, we'll be holding raffles and giveaways with a special gift for the person who attends the most yoga classes during the month. Please visit the Lakeview web pages to see our class schedule. I know Jeff already mentioned the annual maintenance, but I also wanted to give or especially recognize Lacey and Stefan for all that they did during the shutdown. We couldn't have possibly got it done without them, so they were instrumental in getting that done and making sure that we finished on time. And finally, we have we're starting to do Member of the Month. This August, we recognize Cheryl Azoff as our Member of the Month. I just want to thank Cheryl for being a part of the Lakeview Fitness community. Thank you, and if there's any questions.
Any questions for Joe? Commissioner Kessler.
A question. I know the reporting is changing a little bit, and as we move into our strategic planning, is there a way to get a little more breakdown or a little more historical look at the numbers of people who are active members by month over the past couple of years and cancellations, just to see if we can, if there's anything that comes out by looking at trends versus I see each month, but I have to remember what it was last month and things like that. So is there a way to kind of look at it, think about how to present it so we can see if there's anything to learn from that?
Sure, yeah, and there is, I do have a spreadsheet with the historical trends on it so that I can keep track as much as Max Galaxy has for data.
Right, I know.
And that I think right now it only goes back to 2017. So I can speak with Kathy and see if we can get the data from, I believe it was RecTrack, and if we can get that data to go back even further. But as of right now, I do have that historical data, and I can share that spreadsheet with you.
That'd be great, thank you.
Any other questions for Joe? Next item on the agenda, Commissioner Committee Reports Communication. We have none. Next item is the board correspondence. We have none. So Commissioner comments. Commissioner Blue.
None this evening.
Commissioner Moline.
None this evening, thank you.
Commissioner Robbins.
Nothing.
Commissioner Kessler.
Actually, I do. I just want to say, based on the results of the survey, how amazing our staff is. The amount of positive comments and the friendliness, I think, really stood out in my mind. So kudos to everyone here.
And finally, myself, again, kudos to the staff. What we've done comes across very loud and clear that we are appreciated here in what we do. I wanted to thank the residents of Vernon Hills because, as you heard, the turnout for the survey was 3 times more than normal. And that is just an indication of how actively involved we are as a community. And we appreciate your support. We appreciate your feedback. I also wanted to thank the residents that came out to RibFest, and thank you, staff. I thought it was a great event. I thought the music was incredible. That Blues Beatles band, just I wish we had a little bit better weather so that more people could have enjoyed it. That was incredible.
I'm still watching it on YouTube.
Are you? It's pretty cool.
Today.
It's pretty cool. So, and with that, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Moline?
Yes.
Commissioner Robbins?
Yes.
Commissioner Baloo?
Yes.
Commissioner Kessler?
Yes.
President Dorhoeffer?
Yes, we are adjourned.
Kept the meeting on.